New Jersey's former governor Chris Christie has been talking about the future of the Republican Party, and he's written his latest book about it, Republican Rescue. He ran for president once before. He's thinking about it again. I talked with him from New Jersey and asked how leaders should lead as COVID-19's Omicron strain spreads.
Here's the way it works. Honesty, Dave. We need to be honest and not hopeful. And I think that too often our leaders, both President Trump and President Biden, have said things that turned out not to be true about the whole COVID experience. But let's talk about where we are today. What my experience with COVID, which was pre-vaccine, taught me was that this is a very random and dangerous disease. And anybody who tells you they know exactly how it's going to affect you is not telling you the truth, because we still don't know enough about this disease to know that. So I think the first thing we need to be doing as leaders is to say to everybody, if you balance the dangers, if you balance the risks between being vaccinated and not being vaccinated, that being vaccinated makes the most sense. You look at hospitalizations now under Omicron. Those who are vaccinated, the line is like this along that route. Those who are unvaccinated, it's like this for hospitalizations. There doesn't seem to be any doubt that vaccinating helps to lessen the severity of the disease in the overwhelming majority of people. But we shouldn't be telling people that getting the vaccine prevents you from getting COVID, because it doesn't. What it prevents you from having happen is it prevents you in most cases from being hospitalized, and in almost every case from dying. And that's what we should be telling people. And that's the balance they have to find. And, I had one person say to me recently, well, I don't know everything that's in the vaccine, so I don't want to take it. And I said, you drink Coke? And they said, yeah. And I go, do you know everything that's in there? Because I know I don't. The fact is that you have to balance risks in life. And the risk here to not being vaccinated, Omicron, I think, is showing us, is much greater than the risk of being vaccinated.
When you were at your worst and your sickest, did you pray for God to not take you? Some people pray for God to take them because they're so miserable. How bad was it for you?
It was really bad, but I prayed to be spared. I prayed to God to let me be here to walk my daughters down the aisle. I prayed to God to let me be here to help direct my sons to continue to be good young men and become even better adults. Those were the things I was focused on. I was praying to be here for my wife and not to make her a widow. Everything becomes very clear to you in those moments. And in those first couple of days that I was in the hospital, Dave, I have to tell you, they didn't know which way it was going to go. And my prayers were focused on being able to be there for my family. I wrote in the book that I had a conversation with my wife where I said, look, if they're going to intubate me, tell them they have to give me an hour notice so that I can do 15 minutes of FaceTime with each one of our 4 children and tell them the things that I might never get a chance to tell them. When you confront that, your life becomes very clear and very focused. And that's what I was praying for while I was laying in the intensive care unit here in New Jersey.
That will give you perspective for sure. Some of the current governors out there are relying on the National Guard, including New Jersey's governor. New Jersey's governor using it to help in nursing home settings. Some other governors are using the National Guard to go in there and try to help in hospital settings to try to ease the strain with either sick workforce or just frankly not having enough staff. Is that an appropriate use of that? For example, Iowa's governor has chosen not to do that and doesn't want to do that. What is appropriate there?
Look, I think that the National Guard is at their best when they're doing things that are logistical in nature. In this regard, when you're talking about domestic work that the National Guard will help you do. So I think they could be helping with vaccine sites. I think they could be helping with testing sites where we're seeing in some states, including my own, ridiculous lines for testing. The logistics have to get much better in that area as well. I hesitate as to where we are now in using the National Guard essentially as hospital personnel. And so, Dave, that's kind of where I would side with Kim Reynolds and side against what's going on in my own state and some others.
Now, one place where you've disagreed, I believe, with what our Republican-led legislature has done is that you do not believe, from previous comments that I've heard from you, that states should provide unemployment for those who refuse to get vaccinated or tested and then lose their job, right? You do not think that's an appropriate use here. Why is that?
I think people need to get back to work, and I think they need to do everything they can to get back to work. And I think that a lot of the economic problems we're seeing in this country is a result of a labor shortage around. So I don't think that most people who may lose one job will have any trouble finding 2, 3, or 4 others because of the labor shortage that we have across this country. And I don't believe we should be paying people to stay at home based upon philosophical differences or just because they don't want to work. I think that what the American economy has always been built on is the strength and the backbone of the American work ethic. And I think we should be doing everything we can as a government to encourage people to get back to work, to fill these jobs, and to get our economy moving again. And also to set a great example for our children that hard work is what's built this country, not the work of government handing out checks.
Our state's participation rate in the workforce has still not climbed back up to what it was pre-COVID, and I believe there are numerous other states that are facing that same challenge here. What do you think is going to change that, or do you think this is a more permanent change in people's perspectives about whether they want to be in the workforce? How do you look at that?
I hope it's not a permanent change, and this goes back to my last answer. You know, we've got to stop incentivizing people to stay home. You know, government can't be, you know, I saw someone recently make a statement saying, why can't we cut the military budget by 1% and pay all of us to stay home for another month? I mean, this is ridiculous. Go and get vaccinated and get back to work. And if you don't want to be vaccinated, there are jobs where people can do those jobs where a vaccine is not required and where regular testing and wearing of masks will fulfill that. But I just don't believe, Dave, that we can live with a labor participation rate at the rate we have right now and still remain the strongest and largest economy in the world. And so we've got some real decisions to make. Do we want to become France? Or do we want to still be the United States economy? I still want to be the United States economy, and I don't want to be paying people to sit on the couch.
Let's look ahead to the future a little bit. When we go ahead to 2024, will you be an Iowa caucus participant? Will you be an interested observer from afar, or are you uncertain?
Uncertain at the moment, but I will tell you this. Having been a participant in the Iowa caucuses, as you remember, in 2015 and 2016, and having had the honor of having Governor and Mrs. Branstad caucus for me on caucus night in 2016, I have a lot of fond memories of Iowa and of that campaign, even though it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I'll make that decision, Dave, at the end of 2022 on 3 bases. One, do I feel like I offer the type of vision for the country that is useful at this point in time in our country's history? 2, do I think I have a chance to win? And 3, do I have the support of my family? If I say yes to all 3 of those questions, then I think you'll see me as a candidate. If I can't say yes to all 3 of those questions, then you'll see me as a very interested observer. But that's a decision I won't make until the end of this year.
Should we expect to see you in our state in 2022 helping Republicans here?
Look, whenever asked, I've always come to Iowa for a whole variety of candidates, right? I've been there for Terry Branstad. I've been there for Steve King. I've been there for Kim Reynolds. You know, I've been there for a variety of candidates over time to help. And if asked, I will definitely be there to help this time too. I have a lot of great friends in Iowa who were big supporters of mine in 2016, starting with Bruce Rastetter and working its way through guys like Michael Derby and a whole number of others who were incredibly helpful to me. And to the extent that they want me to come to Iowa to help make sure that we keep Iowa red, you can count on the fact that I will be there to help.
Up next, Chris Christie's race to watch.